All right, we're back with part 3 with Michelle O'Connell's death, and I'm going to finish up with the conclusion and then the experts' analysis into some evidence that was at the scene. And then part 4 is going to be some photographs I'm going to show y'all at the scene where you can make your independent observation and opinions in this case. And I think I'm going to do a good job at proving to you that this was not a suicide. So in my review analysis of the death of Michelle O'Connell, my findings and conclusions were based on all the facts and evidence that was at that scene. I requested and received the complete medical examiner's report containing the autopsy of Michelle O'Connell, autopsy photographs from her next of kin. I requested and received a full report of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement investigation. I received all their interviews, tests, crime scene photos, downloads from computers, and various phone records, GSR testing, search warrants, court orders, and polygraphs. And based on the detective's report and conversation at the scene at the time of Michelle O'Connell's death, suicide was a fact according to those who conducted the investigation. James Casey wrote in his conclusion from Sheriff Shore is that he believed there was some but not overwhelming evidence that Michelle committed suicide. That's a big statement. On February 7th, Sheriff Shore of 2013, Sheriff Shore ordered a comprehensive review of the death of Michelle O'Connell by his agency. Any review or investigation into the death of a person needs to rely on the evidence at the scene, evidence collected, evidence preserved, evidence tested, and all available information at the time of the review and investigation. When new evidence or information is discovered, it should be tested and collected if possible, 100%. When new evidence is found, it should be preserved, and when circumstantial evidence is found, that evidence could be useful as indirect evidence. Circumstantial evidence can be used to show factual information to corroborate during testimony. When evidence is found, a witness can say under oath that he or she knew that evidence, and this is direct evidence. Prosecutors and judges are required by law to consider all available evidence before making a decision. This is why evidence, when found, must be corroborated so that evidence paints a clear picture. This is why a prosecutor must question a person under oath by affidavits or bringing them before a grand jury before making a decision releasing information on evidence. The crime scene of Michelle O'Connell was not properly searched for physical evidence that was present. As with any investigation of a crime scene, a pattern must be provided in an organized and systematic way or structure to ensure that no items or physical evidence is overlooked, missed, or discarded, tampered with, or lost. That means every square inch of the scene must be searched for the smallest piece of evidence. Period. The purpose of still photography, video documentation of a crime scene is to provide a true and accurate pictorial record of the crime scene and any physical evidence present. Still photography records the initial condition of the scene. It provides investigators and others with a record that can be analyzed or examined as to the scene and serves as a permanent record for legal concerns. Photography of a crime scene is normally done immediately, in which the death of Michelle O'Connell was done immediately by Deputy Hawley, followed up by the crime scene technicians. Every investigator should know whether you are a homicide or medical investigator, missing steps within a search will produce mistakes. And significant evidence can and will be lost, missed, or discarded, which it was in the death of Michelle O'Connell. The photos of Michelle O'Connell's death scene clearly show evidence being discarded by the detectives or crime scene technicians on the night of her death. This is true of the bloodstained shirt and the black medical glove turned inside out on the hood of Jeremy Banks' car. The shirt was never collected or preserved, but was removed from the bed and placed on the floor as trash. The glove should have been collected as evidence, and the black gloves in the back of his patrol car tested to see if they matched that glove on his car. The glove is now accounted for and lost. The third piece of evidence is a black gun holster found on the kitchen counter next to the bedroom door. Why would a gun holster be empty on the kitchen counter, especially that night? This holster was never tested for DNA or fingerprints. Did this holster fit his H&K 45? Did any of the detective or crime scene technicians check to see if the gun used to kill Michelle fit that holster? No. We know that according to Banks' statement in interviews, he only had 2 handguns. One of them was in the room and one of them was in his patrol car. Homicide was never ruled out before suicide. This is evident from the evidence at the crime scene that was never collected, processed, or tested. Michelle O'Connell could never have put the shirt on the bed, the glove on the car, or the gun holster on the counter. She was already deceased. There are still many questions and answers that need to be answered by the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. And to this day, Sheriff Hardwick, you need to look at this case. R.J. Larissa, you have this information and you are covering it up. You are purposely covering this evidence up. Even when an experienced investigator is assigned to a case, the senior investigator has overall responsibility for the outcome. I believe the ultimate goal was not achieved, but the goal everyone wanted to achieve was met. Suicide. If the crime scene technicians and detectives had done their jobs correctly that night and properly, collecting and documenting evidence, that shirt on the bed would have been preserved and collected and not altered and moved and tampered with. In the conclusion of the Sheriff's Office analysis, he states, we can all agree that a tragic event occurred on September 2nd and that a young child was without a mother. 100%. Did the team of detectives jump the gun and assume suicide? 100%. Did the investigation have blind spots? Shore says, and I'm honored by the Shore for recognizing them and confronting the issues at hand. But Sheriff Shore never acted on the mistakes that were made or corrected those mistakes or investigated the new evidence that they altered, discarded, and moved. I'm glad the photographs were taken because we know now that some of the most important evidence was captured in those photographs and can hold everybody accountable. But nobody wants to act upon it. We got people covering this death up. Since the evidence was not collected for whatever reason, the crime scene technicians did see the shirt on the bed. They did see the black gun holster and they did see the black gloves. This is all the basis for suicide. This is an intentional act to cover up a death. Based upon my review analysis, new evidence discovered in this case and the unethical practices of the Sheriff's Office, the State Attorney's Office, that includes the 5th and the 7th Judicial Circuit for not looking into this case to begin with. The 5th Judicial Circuit was sent that evidence. The investigation into Michelle O'Connell's death was flawed from the get-go, with crucial evidence overlooked. Sergeant Beaver's decision to have Deputy Hawley photograph the scene before anything was disturbed did preserve the integrity of that scene, made the best decision of the night, and was more focused on anybody. These photographs corroborated all involved showed the crime scene in its original state and after detectives and crime scene technicians arrived. And everybody agrees on that. So after they arrived, the scene was altered. The ruling of suicide was premature, was homicide not definitely, was not considered. Inexperienced investigators were assigned and senior leadership failed to ensure a thorough investigation. The shirt visible in Deputy Hawley's photograph and the crime scene photograph should have been treated as evidence. The photographs, authenticated and verified as accurate representation of the crime scene as crucial evidence, these photographs show tampering, altering, destructions. The crime scene technicians and the detectives at the scene are to blame for this investigation, along with Sheriff Shore and his agency. So on January the 11th, 2016, Michelle O'Connell's body was exhumed with her mother Patty's permission, and a strict chain of custody was maintained. Forensic pathologist William Anderson performed the second autopsy. He was assisted by forensic odontologist Kenneth Korn and Jess Westbury. They all did this for free. They didn't charge anybody nothing. I want to maintain transparency in this. I don't want anybody to be obligated to anybody. The procedure was thoroughly photographed and partially video recorded at the St. John's Family Funeral Home. Dr. Anderson's report concluded that Michelle's death should be classified as a homicide based on the evidence from the second autopsy that he'd done. And that report is available. They have it. Dr. Coyne and Dr. Westbury found that no two fractures are trauma, but agreed on a midline mandible fracture between the 24th and 25th teeth. That's very important. Indicating substantial force. Dr. Anderson goes on to say, hey, that force has got to be a tremendous amount of force to do that. On May 25th, 2018, I had a cold case analysis report done by the Delta Epsilon forensic science students under Pamela Marshall supervision, and they conclude that Michelle lacked the knowledge and capability to inflict the documented gunshot wound on herself. They have that report. The biggest thing of all right here. Forensic specialist Jim Stafford out of St. Augustine, Florida, examined the crime scene photos on October 31, 2019, and observed a apparent bullet hole in the shirt above Michelle's head, with inward pointed edges and deep red coloration consistent with wet blood. The irregular hole in coloration matched the blood on the floor. Stafford concluded that the shirt had a gunshot hole suggesting the weapon was nearby or on contact where fired. The forensic evidence strongly indicates Michelle was shot by another person and the shirt was placed over her face. On March the 9th, Anna Cox, a forensic expert in blood spatter, this is her findings. The lack of blood flow patterns from O'Connell's nose and mouth down her chin. I told you, there wasn't nothing. It was all running down the side of her face. She was in a supine position when she was shot. She wasn't standing. She wasn't kneeling. She was laying down flat. The absence of passive drip stains and flow patterns on the front of her shirt, pants, or shoes. I told you that. She also addressed the lack of back spatter on O'Connell's face, referring to the gunshot's location inside the mouth and potentially minimizes the back spatter, especially when we got a shirt there. And we're going to get in that shirt again in a minute. Most back spatter is contained within the mouth and that shirt. Any spatter released through the lip injuries is being obscured by subsequent blood flow accumulation and flow patterns. The blood patterns on O'Connell's face as original photographs are consistent with her head. Listen to this. Being on the floor when they were created. The lack of abrupt changes in flow patterns suggests no significant head movement occurred before first responders arrived. She was in that position when she was shot, when she died. Multiple forensic specialists have concurred that the shirt contained O'Connell's blood, with one noting a gunshot hole in blood matching the floor stains. Three forensic doctors have concluded O'Connell's death should be investigated as a homicide. An independent cold case analysis by forensic science students also concluded that self-infliction is unlikely. Cox observed a blue-gray shirt on the bed above Michelle's head has saturation stains indicating contact with the blood source before coming to arrest. A void in the blood on O'Connell's face between her nose and upper lip supports that. That shirt come in contact with Michelle. Has a bullet hole, blood stains in that shirt. Jeremy Banks is the only one who can put that shirt there, not Michelle O'Connell. Given all investigation, analysis, and new forensic evidence, O'Connell's death has got to be a homicide. The St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, State Attorney's Office must reopen the case and bring Jeremy Banks before a grand jury. The 23rd District Medical Examiner's Office has declined to review this case. You got Dr. Hoban and Dr. Bulick, sadly, has passed away. I ought to went to Dr. Bulick with this new evidence, but he has passed. The 7th Judicial Circuit has a conflict, but this new evidence was presented for review to them. And they are hiding this evidence from the public and from the rest of her family. The 5th Judicial State Attorney's Office previously claimed insufficient evidence. Well, it is time to reassess this new evidence. And when will Michelle O'Connell's death receive a full and improper investigation into her death? This is the end of part 3. Part 4 will be coming shortly.